The first 3 weeks of the eruption here in Hawaii, crazy things would happen in the middle of the night. A new fissure would open up and it would threaten a new neighborhood. Thousands of people were evacuated from their homes. I started the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group to help people understand what's going on and get their questions answered.
Hey, how's it going? We're live. This is Fissure 20.
We had hundreds of people all throughout the neighborhoods sending in videos, articles, and images. We spent a lot of time making sure the accurate information gets out.
This is live. There's still lava moving.
They weren't just sharing a story, they were helping their neighbor. If a family was being evacuated, my group would just jump in and help out. It was huge. They were watching out for each other.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for the support from everybody.
As we go through this, we're growing closer together as a community. When tragedies like this strike, you really realize how much you need each other.
We are the Hawaiian Volcano Education and Resilience Institute, HVERI for short. A lot of people know us from the 2018 eruption of Kīlauea in the Lower East Rift Zone. Working under Hawaii Tracker on the Facebook group. Since then, we've been trying to carry on and take the lessons, the hard lessons that were learned during that eruption and try and prepare for the next major disaster that comes to our island.
Yeah, so we do that through two different programs. One is Volcano Education, and the other part is digital resilience, which we address through online groups on social media. So the way the two programs work together is that the social media networks end up being a distribution pathway for all the information. And having that network in place means we can provide more than just volcano education, but any other preparedness information as well.
What we were working for really came about in the Mauna Loa eruption in 2022. Within hours of that eruption starting, we had the mayor, Mitch Roth, we had USGS HVO Ken Hahn on the stream trying to help flush out a little bit of the ongoing because it's so new. It's completely different from our previous major eruption, which was 2018.
One of the things that Talmadge and I were talking about was how do we deal with social media? It was something we needed to figure out and get right. Our job is to get information to the public and make sure that the public get it as well as possible and as correctly as possible. When Philip and Dane started coming to you and live streaming the meetings, it was great because we were reaching more people than we normally would. So when the eruption actually happened, we had this relationship. The interviews we did during the eruption, the most fun ones were the ones with Philip and Dave because they were more relaxed and we knew we were getting to the local community and people were asking questions. So those were the best, I think. I just want to really give a shout out to those guys and how we worked as a team on this eruption. It really worked out well and we got to a lot of people we wouldn't have normally got.
Aloha everyone, and welcome to our Hawaiian Volcano Tracker for January 29th, 2026. Kīlauea has just had its 41st episode. I'll argue it's its most impactful one thus far to the community, given the large amount of Tephra fallout that we've had. And so that'll be the main topic of our discussion tonight. How have you been, Dane? How's your last week been?
Busy weekend for sure. It was already busy, and Saturday got a whole lot busier with that double fountain, 1,600 feet or whatever it came out to be, and the Tephra fallout from it and all of the impacts, as well as what we were doing down in Ocean View with Civil Defense and USGS for our prep fair that we helped put on. Timing just happened to coincide with the whole episode 41, but it was an exciting week, and yeah, now we get to go back and review a little bit.
Yeah, interesting little side note there. Give you guys a little preview of like all the various factors at play here. We were in Ocean View, and the Tephra closed the highway, so we were stuck in Ocean View with Civil Defense. All of us over there unable to really do a whole lot from that position, but we will recap everything here now and share what we can learn and how we can be better prepared for this kind of event in the future, since that is our mission here at our nonprofit, to improve our preparedness and resiliency towards these events. All right, anything else before we get into it here?
Let's do it.
All right, we got a lot to go through, so let's get ourselves going here. All right, let me get ourselves set up here and okay. Aloha, everyone. This is our Hawaiian volcano summary for January 29th, 2026. Kīlauea's 13-month summit eruption produced its 41st episode this past Saturday, January 24th. It's most impactful on residents due to the combination of the highest fountains and lava measured thus far at 1,575 feet or 480 meters from both the north and south vents, combined with unfavorable wind conditions that brought a lot of tephra into viewing areas in a national park, causing the national park and nearby highway to close, as well as into nearby residential areas and all the way as far as Hilo. So let's summarize some of that. You guys are seeing the KW camera here with the time lapse of the 8-hour fountain of lava from both vents that flooded about 85% of the area of Halemaʻumaʻu crater floor here. So there's the wide view. Let's switch you guys to the V1 camera. And here you can see the precursory overflows that were going from early in the morning on Saturday morning before the main fountains shot up. And in this camera, which is near the Uekahuna overlook, you can see lots of rocks falling from the sky. That's the Tephra fallout we're discussing here. All this peppery looking texture here in the background of the view here. So turning to our V3 camera, this one is showing the north vent on the right and the south vent on the left. So here you can clearly see overflows from both vents. The north vent went first, and fountains from both vents with continuing movement and incandescence on the crater floor following the end of the episode. From the V2 camera, we have a broader field of view. So here we see the first overflows, the high fountains with lots of tephra and Pele's hair in the air. And also we may see at the very end the first recorded jetting event of this long eruption now, or during the last 30 seconds of this eruption from episode 41, from the south vent, we had this bright pillar of magma-poor, gas-rich lava that very briefly shot, perhaps matching or in excess of the highest fountain peaks. To round out our summit impacts here, here's a B1 camera from the far side of the crater showing the large foot of lava that filled the crater and covered the crater floor, as well as a new area that looks more golden with a fallout of Pele's hairs that occurred from the high fountains. Okay, as I've said, this is all happening within Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. All the lava is contained within Halemaʻumaʻu crater, away from the viewing areas below them. But we can look at this satellite image measuring the SO2 emissions and also all the tephra that came along with it, showing the area of impact of fallout for much of this eruption from Kīlauea over East Hawaii and the district of Puna in particular, as you can see there. USGS has a series of photographs showing the impact at the national park, at the overlook, at the Volcano House, at residences and infrastructure in Volcano Village. Catchment tanks are a major concern for residents in the area, as contamination of the water filters and water sources is a major concern, especially in areas like Volcano Village that has a very large elderly population and needs help with all that. So here you can see the various pumices, reticulites, all the Pele's hairs and finer ash that fell as far as Hilo, combined with all the larger material that fell closer to the national park that has since been cleaned up here. As we mentioned, these are the highest fountains of the entire eruption thus far, exceeding the previous maximum. And we are at perhaps our third largest volume of the eruption, depending on the error there, which in combination gives us one of the highest discharge rates that we've had of lava of this eruption thus far, in this category of this highest group, returning to our previous highs. So that was the actual event. Currently, we still have low-level emissions of gas from the volcano, low level for the eruption, but still high for residents that live nearby. And so it looks like our VOG forecast is not currently loading. Give it a chance here. And you can see the impacts across various parts of Hawaii Island, mostly the south and west, but also to the north and east, as you see through the loop here. Looking at our citizen science monitoring network from Purple Air, we can see that there is a concentration of high values, especially around the volcano area, but also wrapping around to the Kona side, where we can see lots of yellow and orange, lots of bad air quality across the island tonight, except for today and Hilo and Puna, by the looks of it. Our monitoring signals have shown a typical pattern of inflation following the episode. So recharge towards a presumed episode 42. You can see there the pattern of deflation and reinflation. And this all follows in the context of having increased earthquakes under the summit area, which have since quieted down, as you can see for the last week here, since the episode actually ended. So here over the last month, you can see the earthquakes increasing prior to episode 41, but really quieting prior to its onset and ever since. And here you see the band of earthquakes in the shallow region. So the current USGS forecast of the onset of 42 is for between February 9th and 20th, based on current rates, subject to change in the future. And that's our Hawaiian volcano summary for this week. Okay, so we'll move to our volcanic hazard summary, which is a big topic for us here tonight. And I'll start off just by showing the actual wide view of the gas plume. So this is the KP camera on the side of Mauna Loa looking south to Kīlauea. And you see the glow of the overflows there to start. And here comes a big pulse. There's a lot of other clouds in the way, but you can see that big column that rises in the background there through the closer clouds. Let's see if I can catch a couple of frames here to show you guys how that looks. There you see a little hint of it there, just peeking between these two layers of clouds. That big outpouring is just starting to rise right there. And a few other ones. Hard to pick it out through there. See a little bit of it peeking through here, rising upwards like that. There again. Not the greatest visibility here, but there's a couple frames where you really see it well, like right there. You can see that tall plume there in the background, catching the high sun with all that turbulence visible on its edge. There it is again. So not the greatest views, but there you clearly can see it. And that might be the best one we have right there. The sun shining in it. So that, and you can see the gas continues, not quite as big a plume, just a gas without all the particulates in a day's sense here. Turning to the K2 camera, I'll show you guys a view of the eruption itself. Here's the day before. People were coming to the overlook here at Uikahuna before the fountain starts. See lots of fallout. The place empties out because the park actually gets closed. then people come back and they get to see the action again. So let me show you one more time. Let's try to zoom it in if it allows me here. Let's see all the people milling about, the fountains, everything when it leaves. And then they come back as the fountain's ending. And you can see all the gas there in the time since. So that's the eruption view. And let's see, do I have the just a daytime view of that? Yeah, so here, let's this lamp. Here we are. The K2 camera, just the daytime views for all of the last week. So you see the fountain and the fallout here towards the camera, but also you can see how the wind keeps swirling and keeps going right across the field of view, left and right and left and right, and the upper winds change directions back and forth and back and forth. And so really, even though we haven't had any Tephra since Saturday, we've had quite a lot of fog in the area, also hampering cleanup efforts nearby the summit. Okay, so that's the close by views of the gas. We also have the V1 camera. This is just the daytime views from the V1 camera, showing similar kind of view with lots of Tephra fallout in the foreground, and lots of gas obscuring the field of view for lots of these frames. You see it comes and goes, but there are big chunks of time where there's really bad air quality up there. And the V2 camera, similar daytime views. You can see it blows left, it blows right, left, right, left, right, and coming at the screen, not so much away from it there. So you can see lots of bad visibility. And in fact, recently the live cameras have shown a lot of those whiteout conditions as well. V3, same daytime views. There's a wind blowing, Kona winds. Trade winds are more this way. So you're seeing more Kona winds, but some trade winds over the past week here. So that's how it played out at the summit there. We rely on the fog measurement and prediction program from University of Hawaii at Manoa for their forecast dashboard here. And this thing has had a few issues today. Let's see if I can get it to actually load all the way. I'm just going to keep that little window here popped up, but there we can see enough, I guess. The current forecast for the next 24 or 48 hours of the emission source at Kīlauea, and the SO2, the pure variety of gas being emitted from the volcano before it reacts with the atmosphere and forms the particles. You can see here it's distributed a lot to the southwest, but also quite a bit to the north, and occasionally sweeping over here and over all the way to Puʻuʻōʻō as well. So switching to our particle layer, you can see that's a little bit more widespread and all over the place. You can see up here all the way in Waikoloa and Honoka, how widespread this impact actually is. And when you see that, as opposed to just the pure SO2 variety, it makes sense why when we look at our purple error network for the island here, we see so many yellows and reds across the island all around. And yeah, we could dive into this. I mean, I think it's gotten foggier in Kona more recently, whereas in Volcano area, there has been fog for much of the day and for many days in a row here. So, for example, this station here at Uikahuna, showing the green is all the way down here. There is a yellow, red, and purple. You can see we're exceeding that multiple times over the past 48 hours here. So still, even without the the lava and Tephra emissions, gas emissions are of major concern still at this point in time, especially with these wind conditions. And everyone in the area trying to be outside, cleaning up their infrastructure as well. So at the national park, we have, let's make sure this is also as updated as possible. You can see they also are showing, let's see, they actually are now showing green at all their sites on the map. You saw before I reloaded it there, it was showing more of the reds and oranges. So we could see maybe the wind has picked up a little bit and it's clearing things out a little, but we can come up here to the charts tab and see that there has been a history of SO2 at the Arts Center, at the Wikahuna Overlook, as well as particulate matter there. At the steam vents, and at Kinakakoi as well. They're in there. These are maybe averaging over slightly longer periods of time than a purple arrow, which is why it's showing slightly different results. So, and then we also have the state map, which for once is not showing everything in the green. It actually shows some of the yellows of these VOG impacts further out. And I'm not sure what's happening here in Maui, if our VOG is reaching all the way to Maui or not, but there's a chance here. And finally, we'll go to the Mounts website, which is capturing satellite data and serving it to us to examine for each volcano. So here is satellite captures of SO2 emissions over Kīlauea. And I've put it back a week. Here's a week ago when we had emissions really widespread because of weak winds a week ago as well. And over that, the past week, let me see if I can make this bigger for you guys to see while still preserving my ability to move it. Okay, yeah, so there you can see how the VOG has varied from center part of the island to the eastern part. There's our episode emissions right there. The day after, it's more in the southwest part. Then it goes more to the sky, more to the west here, more to the east and south. You see how variable it has actually been, and to the north here, the most recent capture yesterday. So that is the real threat to us, is still the gas and the Tephra. This one time, we've gone 40 episodes without them, most of us, right? You know, worth mentioning. They brought us up that Pahala, Ocean View, Mi'olii areas get Pele's hairs on a regular basis. Just not any of this bigger stuff that's falling mostly in a national park where we don't live, and occasionally on a highway where they drive across it.
Right. That was one of the things I was saying also, was just like, I hope this isn't what Ocean View goes through every time, because it was really rough with the fallout that the east side got. And it seemed more like what certain areas got, and we'll go through that in more detail later, how the distribution wasn't uniform across everywhere in Puna, right? And closer to the vent, more likely to get it. But it was interesting, while we were in Ocean View, I didn't see a piece of Tephra fall the entire time. Right? It looked, there was definitely Tephra there already from previous episodes, but that day it was just, we haven't had the fallout. I've been there for the fallout, at least I haven't, for these episodes. So I'm always on the favorable side of the wind, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, so it's a really good point, because people in Hilo maybe are not as in touch with the Ocean View community, let's say, because it's on the other side of the island, and maybe hard to relate to what's actually going on. But Hilo got it one time, and they can hopefully realize that Ocean View has got it 30 or so times already, right? And they're getting to see it once after a year. Right. So hopefully that sends some help or some thoughts or some love over to Ocean View, because for a long time we've been talking about how the impacts are just kind of swept under the rug there, which is partly why we mention it every single week here, that there is impact to Ocean View and to Pahala and to Naʻalehu and those areas, even if it's normal for that to be the case with the eruption ongoing.
Yep.
All right, so continuing on our hazards and impact right here, the USGS has called attention to this news release back from December from the Department of Health, from Governor Green, was released December 22nd, 2025. And at the time, likely because of this winter weather pattern combined with these higher fountains we've been getting, you could anticipate that there might be additional impacts this year over last year. For example, when a year ago we were also in the winter having an eruption, but the fountains were not 1,500 or 600 feet high. That's the main difference here, right? So that can really change the impact a lot. So they note here all the different impacts of the gas, of the tephra, including Pele's hair, exposure to SO2 and particulate matter. They do note recommendation during VOGs, right, to have medical support to reduce your exposure. And if you're vulnerable, to take extra attention, right? And these are the populations who will be vulnerable, will be children, elderly, pregnant, people who work, exercise outdoors, or pre-existing respiratory conditions. So their guidance for short-term cleanup is to use a well-fitting N95 or equivalent mask to help protect against ash during cleanup, as well as heavy-duty gloves, long clothing, for example, long sleeve-length pants, shoes, and eye protection. Masks are designed to filter particles and do not provide protection against the gases, such as SO2. This is why the VOG is an issue, because even with the N95, you can still breathe a VOG if you're out trying to clean ash. Avoid sweeping, blowers, or other mechanical devices that may stir ash back into the air. Right? You gotta do what you gotta do, but sometimes you realize that maybe that wasn't the best way to do it if you start sweeping it and it's blowing all into your face again. So it's worth looking this up. There's lots of links here from all different sources from the Department of Health here. And this is linked to in every USGS update. So you can go and find this if you are looking for more information like this. Right, so this is back from December. So kind of moving forward in time, I thought I'd bring up, as the event happened, USGS put out a post here on Saturday, what to do if volcanic ash, Pele's hair, or other tephra is falling. Stay calm. Panicking won't help. Stay indoors. Close doors and windows. If you're outside, seek shelter, like a car or building. Use an N95 mask to protect your lungs. Heed guidance from Civil Defense and National Park. Here's one I hadn't seen before, but it makes sense. Do not wear contact lenses, as these will result in corneal abrasion if you get that dust in your eye, between your lens and your cornea. Not good. If there is ash, Pele's hair, or tephra in your water, let it settle and then use the clear water. If there's lots of ash, Pele's hair, or other tephra in the water supply, do not use a dishwasher or washing machine. Hadn't seen that one before either, right? But I suppose if it's really fine, it's going to get in there and not actually clean your stuff. Water contaminated by ash, Pele's hair, or other tephra will usually make drinking water unpalatable before it presents a health risk. So don't have to worry about it poisoning you. It might start tasting bad before that, before it actually gets to that point. You're not going to want to drink it.
I've seen enough catchment tanks in Puna and around that I don't want to drink that water anyways.
Right. Yeah. So certainly, yeah, all normal catchment caveats apply, but that as well. And you may eat vegetables from your garden, but wash them first. You don't want to be eating the glass that's landed on them. Right? And so the International Volcanic Health Hazards Network, the IVHHN, has lots of information, and that's what you can search for to find all these different links here. IVHHN. It's right there. Right, and so good point here, the lava is staying in a confined area, but the effects are very widespread. That's really the lesson of this episode right here. And Pele had to try to toss some stuff into the stands from her stadium floor down there, and now we're all a little bit more immersed in the stuff. Okay, so here's a quick video from the national park of what they were doing to clean up. And so here showing their equipment. You guys, it's really loud in my ear. So the equipment brushing off a tephra from the road here onto the side. You see it piling up here on this walkway. This is by the steam vents area right here. Yeah, so the park has that equipment to clean up, has some know-how, and so here's how they're going about doing it. Here you can see the park are wearing protective gear, but they're actually, in this case, it looks like they're using a leaf blower, perhaps. Maybe they are blowing it away, but or maybe they're sucking it up. I can't really tell right there so much.
That looks like a leaf blower to me. Then
Looks like it's
probably
blowing
just
it, yeah.
put it in piles and then, or push it off somewhere, whatever's easiest. That's a lot of
Right.
area to have to do.
It's a lot of area, yeah, for sure, yeah, yeah. And also noteworthy is that the whole area surrounding the overlook is already made of tephra. So you can just blow it off of there. It's not like it's getting anything else
Right.
contaminated. It's just natural.
You just got to get rid of it. And if it's that, I'm thinking about that wall all the way around. If that wall wasn't there, you could sweep it right off the. But,
right. It would just wash right out, right?
Yeah.
Someday. Yeah, so maybe you have to blow it sometimes, but maybe not advised. Here is Volcano House Hotel, a little concrete pad with reticulite glass that fell there. Mostly of glass with sharp edges that can cut skin and cause splinters. Here is a structure in a national park, one of the office buildings there. And you can see there's stuff on the roof and all over the driveway and the lawn, all through here. Picnic bench gives you a little bit of an idea of the density of this stuff. You can't always see it that thick in the grass, except for the big pieces, but there's little stuff everywhere. Covering every blade of grass, there's a Pele's hair. Here's an intersection of 7th Street and Ruby in Mauna Loa Estates in the Volcano area. And you can see here this is a paved road, and you're seeing looks like a gravel road because of all the tephra that's landed on top. It's been crushed up by vehicles driving back and forth across it right through here. So lots of other views like that in Volcano Village as well. I'll share with you as well. Here is a catchment tank where is this? Ohia Estates, about 5 miles east of the vents. And you can see the reticulite and all the other tephra collecting on the cover of the catchment tank. You see it's all over all the plants. So you might, if you had planned to do any gardening, like that's a little bit on hold unless you really have to, or you're going to have to suit up for that as well, because Pele's hairs are everywhere. You can see reticulite so light, it's still resting on top of a hapu'u fern, sitting there just like that. Here they're showing a view of what a piece of reticulite looks like before and after it's stepped on. So you can see it looks like a nice solid thing, but once it's stepped on, you can see it's really just a lot of airspace and glassy edges around the bubbles. So it produces lots of little glassy ash particles right there. Here is a national park cleanup efforts. So this is when you have the equipment, what you like to do. You spray water onto the pavement to keep the dust down. And then you have the other machine come and scrub and brush all that material off of the roadway here. Even still, you can see there's some dust rising up right there. And just between, you can see this is the main entrance of the national park. There's a national park entrance sign right there in between the water truck and the brusher. Another road in Volcano, and similarly, they're trying to just wash off the road. This is the truck that has a sprayer that sprays water down onto the road and then washes the dirt off the side. So that's a technique that's been used here in the village. And here is a vehicle in Hawaiian Paradise Park, approximately 25 miles, 40 kilometers from the summit, right there. And there you can see the kind of ash fall. And ash is any tephra particle less than 2 millimeters in size, or 0.08 inches, right? So it's just a size definition. So it can be more glassy or more clayey, or it can really have different conditions of your ash, right? But ours is very glassy right now. Will eventually turn into more clayey stuff as it breaks down. And there you can see it's collecting in all these bits, all these nooks and crannies of the car. Here they are under a microscope next to a penny. This is the edge of a penny right there. You can see the letter T right there. It's about the size of some of these clasts right there. And what you're seeing is what's this, like this little jack shaped thing here is actually the junction between several bubbles that are joined in a piece of reticulite, which has been crushed by tumbling through the air for 25 miles. And so in the end, you only get the dust falling back to the earth rather than the big pieces further away. And that's kind of what's happening, right? The closer you are, the thing goes up, lands, it's still landing pretty big. But the more it's tumbling and whirling in the air, then it's just going to get ground into finer and finer dust. So there you see some zoomed in shots of that. So that's the USGS photo view of that impact there as well. And from there, I just want to share the USGS works with this volcanic ash falls impact working group, which has a lot of information. Here's a webpage, for example, talking about buildings and households, right? So this website's addressing all different kinds of ash, including from the more silicic volcanoes, where the ash can often be very much finer than what we're having. Less than 2 millimeters is very small, but there are explosive volcanoes that produce ash that's smaller than 0.02 millimeters also, right? So, whole other order of magnitude smaller. So when you have that kind of very fine ash, then it gets even messier, right? And so this guidance is for that as well as what we have going on here. And so this is probably a little bit of it more overkill than we need, but the principles are all valid and take them as far as you like. So for example, it's important to try to keep ash from entering buildings as much as possible, because once it's in there, you got to clean everything up inside as well. So depending on how much wind or how dusty the stuff's getting mobilized outside your house, you might need to worry about the air intake into your house, or air conditioning, or air filters, or those kind of things. Be safe during building cleanup. Rooftop cleaning requires careful considerations. It is very common for people to fall off of roofs during ash cleanups. Very, very common, almost every single time. Almost every single time. We've already heard of it happening here in Volcano this time around. Partly it's the fact that there's slippery stuff on your roof, like loose little rocks. And if there happens to be any moisture, whether it's dew or rain or whatever else, then it can make it extra slippery as well. So, and remember, you're probably wearing a mask, you're probably wearing gloves, you're all suited up. It's hard to move and hard to see. It's hard to react. It's like somewhere to take extra cautions for sure. Depending on the kind of ash, this is not so much true of our reticulite here, but in places where it can be more dense, there can be a risk of collapse because of load capacity where it gets very, very heavy. Our stuff has been so light that I don't think anyone's roof is at risk of collapsing from this stuff.
I didn't even hear that happening in 18. Like nobody's roof collapsed due to weight from that I know of. Other than like some greenhouses and stuff.
Right, that's a little different, right? Because all that stuff's sharp, right? Even like a small light piece of reticulite can slice a piece of greenhouse plastic, no problem, right? 2018, mostly Tephra, but in 1924, the explosion of Kīlauea summit produced a giant ash cloud that did fall out to the east, and it was finer grained, and that was reported to fall at the Glenwood store, the Hirano store in Glenwood, and caused their gutters to collapse. That store was still there. Right, the gutters fell off the building. Haven't heard about that happening either. Right. So we can get the other kind. That's not what we have right now. Right. But this is where this guidance comes from. Right. Places like Pinatubo, for example, right, like which have like pyroclastic flows end up being tens of feet thick, and hot inside for years, kind of thing. Right. There's a whole other scale of ash. We're talking about the thickest place I've seen the fallout, maybe like 10 centimeters, 5 centimeters, somewhere in that range like that, right? Like this much, that much, right? And we're not talking about like tens of feet of it. Right? So still be careful. Maybe the ash isn't enough to fall through your roof, but maybe the actual fog has rusted your roof enough that you will fall through it yourself. The number of roofs you see that are in poor condition driving down a highway is really staggering. many of them are not safe to go on, so you have to be careful of that as well. So use strong ladder, safety harnesses, filter face masks, gloves, and eye goggles. Use planking, mats, plywood sheets, plywood footwear to prevent slippage and impact, prevent you falling through your roof also. When using shovels, rakes, or other tools, don't put a hole in your roof and cause it to collapse under you either, right? When using water, be careful because the full force of water from fire hoses can easily break lap shingles or tear lap roofing material. So in the inside, pretty much vacuum as much with as high efficiency particle filters as you can, basically. And then when you're empty your vacuum, be careful also, right? Suggestions for removal from FEMA: blowing or dry sweeping should be minimized. Dustless methods such as washing with water or wetting agents are recommended. Damp rags whenever possible. Where damp rags aren't possible, vacuum cleaning should be applied. Right after vacuuming, wash. Avoid excess rubbing because a sharp ash can cut fibers. Glass, porcelain enamel, and acrylic can be scratched if wiped vigorously. Right, so you want to dab or rinse rather than wipe. High shine on wood will be dulled by fine grit. Vacuum and then blot. And then tack. Floor sweepers should not be used because they're going to re-entrain dust. Any clothing, fabrics, anything, rinse under water, wash carefully, anything that's outside. Extra detergent on soiled clothing, small loads with lots of water, and don't mix heavily soiled with lightly soiled things. What are you going to say, Dane?
Oh, no, I was just hopping in there for a second, but yeah, and also just getting it off yourself. I heard a whole bunch of talk about how to get it off yourself if you do get it. It can happen. And I was just found just washing it off just with water was the easiest way. Just running water and don't, grind it into yourself, but just let the water do the work and
find the closest shower, waterfall, or what have you, rainstorm. That's what they have. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember when I was at the park, and which I put back in 15 or something like that, when I got caught under Pele's hair, I had to take my shirt off and just drive without my shirt on because it was just way too itchy, too much grit and everywhere, right? And I guess I was lucky to have the option to do that. So yeah, definitely get in your clothing. Stove fans and vents should be cleaned thoroughly. Clean refrigerator air intakes, any surface that blows and recirculates ash. And that's the building section, for example. But this website has other for agriculture, for equipment, for all these other topics as well. So you can look for this as well. The Volcanic Ash Falls Impacts Working Group. Right there. Let's make that bigger so everyone can see it. All right. The USGS has also put out some guidance on this recently. Volcano Watch article just last week talking about the fallout of Pele's hair. So here they note, much of the general guidance about volcanic ash exposure and cleanup can be applied to Pele's hair, even though the two are not exactly the same. Ash is defined as particles smaller than 2 millimeters in diameter. And while Pele's hair is usually thicker and longer, it's likely that ash-sized particles are also falling with Pele's hair. And fragile Pele's hair can also break into ash-sized pieces. Pele's hair doesn't wash off of grassy areas as easily as ash and can impact grazing animals, but there are no studies of these impacts. So if you're concerned, consider supplementing your animal's feed or relocating them to an area where Pele's hairs did not fall. Yeah, good luck with that, right? We in the past have lawn mowed one area, then your animals maybe can go there a little more easily, and lawn mow the other area. We might need to accelerate the process a little bit there, since there are not very many barns, for example, for animals to winter in here, in Hawaii. It's not something we have. Pele's hair could be beneficial to pasture growth in the long term. So before this recent episode, less than 1 millimeter, fraction of an inch fell in nearby communities, an amount that usually does not require any action, right? So limiting exposure is the best way. Rainfall and wind will eventually remove Pele's hairs, or plants will bind it into the soil. Small amounts are handled by most general filtration systems. Otherwise, if there's too much of it, that's what can really clog things up. That's when you need to worry about disconnecting your downpipe from your gutter system until you can actually either rinse your roof off or let some natural rainfall wash your roof off before reconnecting it, right? The issue is, if you're using all this water to wash everything off and your downspot's not connected, you're going to run out of water. So you have to worry about that a little bit as well, especially, up here. That's something we've heard about, concerns in the Volcano area, people being concerned about what to do with their water now that they're, this week's been very dry, for example, but no more water is falling in the tank. You can disconnect it, and how do you plan for that in the months moving forward? So that's the Volcano Watch. There's a lot more stuff here. Here's from the in the USGS update, they are citing this document as well. FAQ, I believe this is from the IVHHN. So I won't read through all of this, right? But I'll put it on the screen here in case anyone wants to pause and read any of this as well, or find the IVHHN site as well. So we know what Pele's hair is. We know that it's sharp and can poke or get stuck in your skin. The glass is not poisonous, but can be physically hazardous if swallowed or inhaled, because it can irritate your nose and throat. But most strands are too large to be breathed in deeply. This is interesting. They say that particles in the air only enter the lungs if they're less than 10 micrometers in diameter, or about 1/8 of the width of a human hair. Analyses of Pele's hair from an ongoing Kīlauea eruption show that most hairs are larger than this, although some hairs can still be small enough to be inhaled. So most of them, and not worry about every single piece of glass out there, it's just the finer stuff, really, right? It's not believed to cause any respiratory or other disease, but research is still ongoing. People may be concerned that Pele's hairs could cut, lacerate, or abrade the lungs because it's made from glass and is sharp. But this does not happen because any strands that are small enough to be inhaled will float in the airstream and gently deposit. So that's good to know. Something else I had not read before. People with existing respiratory diseases like asthma may find their symptoms are worse when you're exposed to these particles. So take precautions. Is it harmful if swallowed? Yeah, don't eat it, right? But glass shards may cut or be a choking hazard. Keep children away from Pele's hairs. We've read things about people's dogs here in Volcano Village just going out, just chomping it all up, and I don't know what you can do about that. But not great either. You have to let your animals out, and they start doing that. So protection, limited exposure. Will it make my water dangerous to drink? It says emissions can acidify rainwater, which in turn can dissolve metals such as lead, zinc, and copper from roofing and plumbing materials. Volcanic elements such as fluorine in a form of fluoride may also get into rain catchment tanks close to the eruption. And they note here that even if the levels are high, EPA guidelines are based on exposure over many years. And what Dane said earlier, note the Department of Health advises no one to use catchment in the first place. But everyone still has to, and we do. That's one of the things we've got to live with out here. Like, there's no other way to get water, right? I'm telling you, don't use catchment. There's no other water service apart from going and hauling it yourself every single day or a few days, which is not feasible, right? So everyone uses catchment. But officially don't do it, is what they're saying. You're not going to touch that with their 40-foot pole. All right, so that's the VOG FAQ. They also have pages on water catchment systems, guidelines for catchment systems from the university, since the state won't talk about it, right? And et cetera, et cetera. So you can look up the IVHHN catchment systems as well if you want more information on that. Also has come up in our resilience network that you could do a Google search for roof and gutter cleaning Hawaii Island, and you can see there's a long list of different vendors advertising that they might come and do this for you. And this might be what our elderly population needs to do, is all get in line for as many of these guys as are willing to come to Volcano as possible. Right there. Now, this is not a situation unique to Hawaii. I just wanted to note here, it happens in Iceland, it happens in Africa. In Iceland, they actually call this witch's hair, not Pele's hair. That was news to me as well. But there it is, how to deal with witch's hair, and it's pretty similar, right? Don't touch it with your bare hands. It can scratch your car, your furniture, your glass, clear it from surfaces, blow or rinse it away, etc. It's all the same stuff, right? So just to show you, it's not just here, and this is one example of that. But I also found this paper from about 10 years ago from New Zealand, Geological Sciences here, that documents Tephra fall cleanup in urban environments all over the world. And there's a lot of information through all of here. They kind of categorize the volumes and thicknesses and all of that. Let me see what I can pull out to share with you guys here. One of the things that it notes is that the challenges can be that it can be repetitive. You can have more than one pulse of ashfall coming out, right? It can affect a very wide area. The area affected can change from episode to episode, depending on the wind conditions, the amount of material output, the characteristics like the grain size of the material being outputted, all those things, right? Sometimes it can be many years of cleanup due to ongoing eruptions or remobilizations of deposits. Right? So, and when you're in an urban environment, which is not where we are here in Hawaii Island, we're very rural and our natural environment is volcanic. But let's say you were in a city, then you can't just leave this stuff anywhere. You have to bag it up and remove it and take it somewhere and put it somewhere else, right? So a lot of this is to try to encourage communities to plan ahead of time, because if you haven't thought about where you're going to put this stuff or how you're going to manage it ahead of time, there's really not a whole lot of time to mobilize after it's actually happened. And the clock starts ticking immediately, right? So they note planning, removal, collection, disposal as being the major steps there. The idea being to hasten restoration of all social and commercial functions, right? As well as mental health, because when you go out there and keep seeing this stuff day after day, week after week, month after month, you feel like you're being impacted continuously, not just the one time, right? So that's does affect your mental health as well. So they've let me see if I can find there we go, the scroll bar, so I can get past a lot of this and maybe come to some of the graphics that can share some of the insights that we come out. But just to show you, like, there's a lot of information about here, and just to show you some places. Let's see, somewhere down here at the bottom, there's a list of places, for example. Right. So yeah, like this, for example, right? Down here we have Tephra accumulation in cubic meters per square kilometer. Now, I just cleaned my roof and I try to measure how much came off, and I try to do a very rough estimate of calculation of how much we are. I don't know, but my guess is we're somewhere in this 1,000 to 2,000 cubic meters per square kilometer, somewhere in the range right in here. So like in this band right here, right? Right. So you can see that there can be a lot more Tephra that can come up. This is a logarithmic scale, so it's going up by a factor of 10 every inch over, for example, here, right? So we're actually somewhere in the middle or low end of what you get, right? cleanup operation duration in days. In St. Helens, where they had finer ash, even with a very small amount of it, it took them about 3 months to get rid of all the stuff. 3 months with all their equipment, because it kept remobilizing and blowing around, right? And so you can see all the places that studied this in Japan, in Alaska, in Argentina, et cetera, et cetera. So there can be quite a long time of cleanup, depending, right? And the cost can be pretty big as well. So here's, for example, the different lengths of roads getting affected, cost of removal, and US dollars 2013. What you can see is that most of these values are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not exceeding $1 million, or getting up to $10 million of how much it costs you to actually remove this stuff. So this is why you have to have an emergency plan for removing it, because you can't come up with $100,000, $1 million on the fly to clean up your city if suddenly the stuff's all in it, right? So just some little insight there, and just to show you guys, like all different places and how much research has gone into this and all that, right? So we may follow up on this a little bit more next week or in future weeks as it is relevant here. But I thought I'd share a little bit of my own personal experience too. I know we've talked about this for a long time, but this is a major impact, and this is what we're here for. So here's my own catchment tank. Just want to share what that actually looked like before I brushed it all off. I'm probably 7 miles away, and there is a biggest size of pieces of rock that fell on my house. Some pretty big chunks. This is how big they are after they landed and shattered. So like some chunks fell off of this, right? When they landed, they were bigger to start before they broke into these sizes right here. And this is a picture of the Volcano School. You can see the roof all covered up there, a lot closer to the national park. This is the roof of the post office in Volcano Village. So you can see a lot of it's down in a gutter already but you can see like how much stuff is just in every little valley in there. Right? So I took some of this advice. I'm going to show you guys my own solar panels, and I don't want to brush them off to abrade any of the glass. So this was my shop vac that I found worked really well to actually, the stuff's all so light, it just comes just shooting off of there, right? It just sucks it right up. Not too far, because I don't want to scratch it up from all the rocks flying into the thing at one time, but you can see how light everything just goes right in there. And hopefully you can see the different size of particles, right? Like on a flat surface, the Paley's hairs are long, there's little Paley's tears. There's reticulite chunks, all different stuff in there. And you can see how well that's working right there. So if anyone is having to do this themselves and can't call anyone else, it does take a long time. Got a lot of solar panels, not very fast, but that's how the cleanup goes. You end up with a shop vac like this, with all of cinder kind of crushed and compacted, right? Which you can then go and spread into your other cindery soil, which is all around here anyways. So this is an example of my own experience here. And a quick just preview of comparison here is a picture that Dane sent of his parents' house down many tens of miles further away, and just showing how there it's more of a dusting that when you sweep it up, makes a little pile, something like this. So he'll go over more of these impacts here shortly. But for now, I just wanted to wrap up our hazard section by just reviewing the range of what's out there. Anything else at this moment, Dane, to add in here? Should I keep going?
No, I think that's good and good segue. Do we want to roll or mid-roll at this point, or what do you think?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. Yeah. Well, there isn't much of a mid-roll. I'll just say that the one thing I wanted to highlight, today, just throw it in there before we thank everybody, is that there is a little bit of progress being made down way Pohiiki. There we go. So check this out. There was a post made from Donald here down at the corner of Pohiiki and the Red Road. and it shows that new egress coming in from the angle going up the hill. So that progress on restoring Puʻuʻōʻō Road finally had that headway. Then it hasn't been paved yet, as you can see, but progress is being made to restore that, which is, with after the boat ramp and all of that drama, it's nice to see something getting done that we know will work. That's all I have on there. So I did want to then just throw out the mid-roll. Thank everybody for tuning in today, and that rely on viewers like you to come through. The likes, the subscriptions, the shares, all that stuff really does help keep this channel going and get it seen by more people. And we'd like to thank the County of Hawaii through the Vivi Grant program and soon the Kīlauea Recovery Grant program for supporting this stream, as well as our other programs, our digital resilience and youth development. So yeah, we appreciate all the support there. We did have a couple donations come through. We had a $20 super chat from Norm. Appreciate that. And a $10 donation over from Raven. So thank you for that there. All right. That gets us through our mid-roll. And Lou, not with us this week. He is filming on location again and be bringing to you that next week. All right. Are we ready for the fun bit? Or do you have more you want to do first?
Yeah, there's some other stuff
Okay.
coming first here. I think what I'll do to start though, to keep us going though, is to bring up Volcano Watch, which has just been published here. So let me get that on the screen.
Sweet.
And Volcano Watch this week is When It Rained Rocks, Tephra Fall during episode 41. We've talked about all of this already, so I won't go through all this again. What I'll just show you guys is the article is here, using many of the same photographs. But we have a new map. And let's look at that. Get it all on the same screen here. There we go. So in maroon, maximum class height larger than 2.5 inches. That's right through here. Continuous Tephra cover, right? In orange, maximum Tephra class larger than 2.5 inches bombs, but not continuous. In yellow, between 1/16 and 2.5 lapilli, and in this more tan color, smaller than 1/16 an inch, 2 millimeters ash. So there is an area of ash mapped out. Oh, it looks like as far north as, what is that, Papaiko up there? Almost to Honolulu, looks like, up the Hamakua coast. And you can see all the way down past Kalapana, the edge of the national park down here to the south. That whole corner of the island with the bullseye being right in there. Right, Volcano Village, Mauna Loa Estates, and Fern Forest. Right there. All right, so that's Volcano Watch. I'll keep it moving here. Let's come back to the visual observations. So that's what we'll do next here. And I'll start off just by panning us through with the live views. It's still pretty foggy up here, the V1 camera at the summit. Lots of degassing still. A little clearer, but still pretty foggy. Not a lot of wind. You can see all the VOGs hanging there. And there, the V3 as well. So the USGS has released a photo series of episode 41. Photographs from Volcano House here. Let's see if I can get these full screen. Yeah, from Volcano House at the very start, when it called the start of episode 41, with fountains still pretty low from both vents. Kanakakoi overlook, with both vents ramping up and all the Tephra falling towards the photographer. Looks like it was Heather Winslow and Dr. Winslow. And some other views here. Just not the right aspect ratio to show those, but you can see how high in the air that plume is getting there, and again there. See the north vent with a V-shaped fountain there. And pretty interesting set of images there. So for our time lapses, let's show you guys. Here's a V1 camera. And we're starting off the evening before. Overflows actually begin on the evening of the 22nd, but we're going to go with the continuous eruption on the 24th as the start of our animation. You saw the ramping up of the fountains, all the ash fall, continuing movement and incandescence overnight. And once it gets light, you can still see the rock moving still as well, even as a bog is trying to block the camera here. So that's the V1. There's the K2 again, this episode 41 with people not able to see it from the overlook right there in front of it. We have the V3 camera. Well, here's a V3 camera. Both vents glowing, north vent overflowing first, south vent joins in. Then they both ramp up. Both fountains are about the same height most of the time at that high, over 1,500 feet high. And here you can see continuing glow and movement of the rock throughout the nighttime and daytime, as we're used to seeing by now as well. From the V2 camera, there is a ramp up. You can see golden clouds there. I think that might be either the sun shining through the fume, or potentially Pele's hairs in the plume as well, getting lit up by the sun. What you can really see there is plumes. The fountains are getting quite high. They get back down again, and then at the very end, let me play this a little slower here. Where did I? Let's see here. Let's play a little. Just realize I gotta. Here we go. Let's play this a little slower. From right in here. So we're having high fountains, and then at the very end, we have that really tall jet you might have seen shoot off to the side there. So for comparison, here's the one screenshot I have. Maybe a little bit past the peak, but close at around 12:30. Fountain heights reported close to 1,600 feet, sometime around here. And for comparison, the very end frame jet looks like this. Right now, these jetting events, as they're referred to in the literature, have been documented before at Puʻuʻōʻō. And I'll note it here. This is professional paper or special investigative report 2018 on -5109, which is on Puʻuʻōʻō eruption episodes 21 through 48 right there. Right, so that's what we're looking at. And here you can see there's a whole section on jetting events. We've discussed this before. During the final hours of episodes 42 to 47 of Puʻuʻōʻō, we saw a new type of fountaining behavior in which 1 to 4 brief jetting events occurred within the last 2 hours of the episode. They note there was an instance during episode 38 as well, but really it's 42 through 47, which were the last 5 episodes of the Puʻuʻōʻō high fountain phase. So as it was building pressure and eventually broke a path to 2 miles away to erupt for the next many years, in that buildup, it also began having this jetting behavior, right? So here we are, we had earthquakes last week. We're wondering can things change? We start seeing jetting for the first time now too. So that's why we associate this here, right? So these are magma poor, gas-rich fountains that in their case reached heights as great as 550 meters, creating enormous black Tephra columns, accompanied by a loud hissing noise, and followed by a period where the plume was so dense it obscured the bright part of the fountain. After each event, the fountain died for a few minutes and then slowly recovered, separated by half an hour to an hour, more or less. Right, that's more or less what was happening there. So here's a table of them, episode numbers, how many jets there were per one, how long they last in minutes. So lesson 3, lesson 2, 1 to 2, 1, 1.5. Right, none of them is very long. The height of the jet is usually higher than the height of the fountain after the jet, always. The fountains are jetting much higher than they return to afterwards there. And so similar pattern as what we just saw here at the end of episode 41. And we'll have to wait and see what other patterns emerge from this. But here, for example, is an image of the final jetting event of episode 44 at Puʻuʻōʻō. Now this is in the daytime, right? So you can really see all this black material up here, all the Tephra being shot into the air there. Our version that we have was at night. Harder to see that, especially with this resolution, but you see incandescent material all the way up in here. Maybe not as much of it as over here, right? Maybe it's more gas rich, but there's some bright stuff getting carried all the way up to here. Right? And if I put that line on there and I pull us back to this fountain peak, we may have matched or exceeded the peak fountains with jets once again here. Not for the first time at Halemaʻumaʻu eruption. So that's how it looked during the jetting, and then it will return to this kind of view following an event here in episode 46, for example. So we've only seen one event now, just one at a time and not returning, but that's what it looks like. And so to show you what this actually looks like with your own eyes, here are time lapses of the various cameras. This is a V1 camera to start. Just the last 10 minutes of the eruption or so, sped up so you can see that burst that happens right there at the end, followed by all the gas. Here comes the V3 camera. Look, low fountains. Here comes the burst in 2 more minutes. So low, 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 and it's going to go off the top of the screen here. Here it comes. And it dies off. No more lava. Eruption's over. And the V2 camera, the furthest one back that has the best field of view, you actually can see the top of the thing from here. Right? You see the north vent's already mostly jetting gas. Then the south vent comes and shoots that jet, and then we're done. So that's the jetting phenomenon we just saw here. And if we didn't have so much to talk about, I would rewind it and play it again, but I think I better keep going here for you guys. So KW camera, the overflows that morning, the ramping up of the fountains, double fountains, Tephra falling all across the field of view, the material feeding a big flow that sweeps to the north, hits the northern crater wall, and wraps around clockwise to the south, and misses just a little piece of the middle of the crater floor, but covers a large amount of it there. That's a KW camera. The B1 from the other side of the crater, really impressive as well. So here we are with the beginning of continuous eruption with those first overflows that are sustained, leading to the fountaining events, leading to the flow. Here comes wrapping around. It gets dark, so you can see the full extent of it there. A couple more continuing breakouts and overturning events there. And then come daytime, you can see this big brownish yellow area right through there, right, which wasn't there before, which is a result. See, this is before. And after, it's just showing the Pele's hair cover on a crater floor where lava did not cover it. And one final thing on these time lapses here. This is a B1 camera daily since the end of 41. So what you can see is this lava flow settling down, losing gas. You get collapsing a little bit right there, right? You can see that pretty clearly. But look up here. This part's actually rising. So as this thing, it's like a seesaw right there. It's like tipping in the foreground down, and in the middle of the crater it's going up, right? So the flow itself on the surface is cooling, but lava is still injecting underneath the crust under the crater floor all the way to here, even after the fountain is done. So something else to pull out from time lapses here. So those are the observations we have from the summit region. I'm going to pass it to Dane now to talk about the observations we have from the community that we've sourced from Hawaii Tracker. I can't hear you, Dane.
I was saying, just give me a second to get set up here.
Oh, okay.
All right.
And yeah, so much to cover. And not so many views in the park once it was closed, but you'll see that there is before and after.
Right. So yeah, for this, we start out inside the park before the eruption even starts. This is a lot of footage that was submitted on Hawaii Tracker. So this was from RAF the day before, but then the morning of, we start to build up from these dome fountains, which are rather impressive. This is about when the eruption was called to be happening, and those quickly grew. And we can start to see in the beginning, it looked all cool, like everything was going to be fun, and you'll see that throughout this video. There's like a juxtaposition that happens from where you're getting the fallout and where you're not. So at this point, we're very early on, and you can see those doom fountains growing. And from here, we start to get the impacts of all of that tephra and that dust inside the park. We can see that progression, and this happened pretty quickly over the course of maybe an hour. We have this from Dakota, and then this from Jeff out on the backside of it, the interesting angles. But you can see a lot of people are out doing the tourist thing during this, especially in the very, very beginning. Right? People can travel here for this, and it's a big deal when it goes off. So in the beginning, it seemed like that was going to be what was on the menu almost. Some great footage here. You can just see all that stuff being thrown up into the air. This one's from Jeff.
Hey, we got the lava
We were
fountains
out there
behind me
too.
here. This is just getting underway. The dual fountains. It's from the road in Kīlauea, Highway 11. No Tephra falling out here yet, but I expect that to change rather shortly. We're trying to make your way into the park. Definitely a bunch of people already trying to get up there. All right, guys.
Right, so we were out there. We kind of got past it just before it started. We had to send out our notifications and everything, get posted that it was happening. It was a busy day, and right then we were able to pull over, but we can see all the impacts of that falling debris, the tephra inside the park. We have a bunch of different angles here, but really it's just a wide distribution that's happening. There's raining rocks. That one comes from Yvonne. This one's from Kelly. You can see just all of those rocks raining down.
It's like Tephra. Ow. Let me try to go walk.
I don't think I'd want to be in there, and I was
where
saying that
those people
I
are.
wouldn't want to be in there today.
It is really raining
March this.
Tephra.
Everything working? All right.
You can see the rocks falling, but you can't see all the Pele's hair, which are all everywhere also.
Right. And it is little bits of rain in there too. So there's all kinds of stuff falling from the sky.
It's nice to hear the sounds of Tephra hitting the ground, of the actual roar of the jet of the fountain.
That's scary, a little scary.
Right. I tried to leave as much of it in as I could. So here's the view from Volcano House. And again, you can hear the restaurant clamor and all that. But there are rocks falling outside. So we rotated. We started at Ue Kahuna. We went to Volcano House. Now we have John Carson down on Kenneco's side. And it is really coming down. And that's if anybody knows, it's about a mile and a quarter. But I just here want to just take a moment to look at the wind and just how much that plume is going the wrong direction, so to speak, as to this is taken from Mauna Loa Road, another one here, and we can just everything kind of blowing to the east. And this was true throughout the day. I don't know if there was any point where it really varied. Once it started blowing east, it stayed.
So this is what the parking lot looks like right now.
By Kelly over on Hawaii Track.
Kahuna. God, I probably said that wrong. Kahuna. They're closing it. They're gonna all us leave. Alright, episode 4.
And now we start to look at the impact of the vehicles that are all parked up there. And this was up by KMC, but down at Kīlauea, everybody's got to get back to their cars. So people that left early, the road might have looked like this, with rocks falling. If you stayed and take pictures, the road might look a little more like this.
It's
and a lot
raining
more
Tephra
debris
on us.
on the trail so far.
Pretty sizable
too early in the day.
chunks. Some of them do hurt. I ended up leaving.
Some bigger pieces. And
But
I wanted to note that
road.
I saw a photo, and I think you saw it too, of a
Kīlauea
car with the window broken.
just
The back
littered with Tephra.
from one of these pieces. And you can see what it was like at the Devastation Trail parking lot here. And then all of it just gathering up. So this was around noon that day. And then they turned out and went down Highway 11 back towards Hilo. And this is where most of the pieces were coming down. You can just see it all gathering on the sides of the road and want to get out of there quickly. 137. They get out of there. And these are all the pieces they had on the car. So back into the park a little bit, looking at some footage posted by Royalyn, one of our contributors, and all the Tephra and everything inside the park. And this is just before it closed again, because they did close the park. A lot of people were in there though before it did close.
Fender bender that just happened. These cars.
And then going down
they just
Highway
rear-ended each
11.
other.
Right, I wanted
Nice.
this
We're
is
out.
an interesting
Now we
shot
gotta deal with
just
all
because
these
of the
cars.
road closure.
Look at that line of cars.
Yes.
Bye, lava. Yep.
They're all going towards where we just were.
Oh, they're stopping them.
Oh, they're probably not letting anyone else go.
Yeah.
We got
That's
lucky.
what it is.
Yeah.
Wait, they're turning us around.
Are they?
No. Are they?
So
Insane.
just want to note all of the traffic right coming up. Like that's double wide parked with the road shut down. And I'm not sure if they get turned around here or not, but you know, that's a major hazard up there as well as just the traffic from the sheer amount of people and people parking in the middle of the road almost to be able to get out and go look at it.
We saw that on the way back from Kīlauea ourselves, right? That people were parked on both sides of the road, and this was hours and hours later.
In the
maybe
road,
because you couldn't go into the park to see you couldn't get into the park, so just got as far as I could and just stopped right there in the middle of the road and got out and started walking to get a view, and stayed however long I needed to stay, and then everyone's trying to drive around them after the fact. So yeah, it was a little dicey.
I've never seen this shit.
So, not to say that there wasn't anything to look at. I mean, this is the view from back over there where a lot of those people were parked. You know, we're not going to sit here and say, oh, there was nothing to see here. I mean, the view is pretty crazy. But the thing about it is we talked about this back in 2022 with the Mauna Loa eruption. You can't tell people that they're not allowed to park on the side of the road to watch it and expect them to listen if there's no alternative. If there's an alternative, then you can push them towards that potentially, and it can alleviate. But if you just say, no, don't go look at the really cool thing hiding behind that bush, people are going to go look at the really cool thing hiding behind the bush. And this was, I just want to put this from Kota Yamaguchi because these are some of the most iconic shots. Like I've seen one of these from 2018, one of the golf shot ones, and just one of the things that the juxtaposition. But back to the Tephra, and just look how much of the really fine reticulite. This was posted by Yvonne, one of our volunteers, and you can see the close up of it all.
Yeah, really, you can see those little shapes that break out. Yeah, you guys just picture of the little jacks, you could really see it in that close up of hers.
Right. And here's another one from Kelly on the video.
I learned these are 95% air. Ready?
And now let's talk about some of the impacts downwind. So in the park and in Volcano Village, things got covered. You can see the map down on the bottom right, kind of showing you where we are roughly. The map was a little bit before, but you can see that we're right around the summit region. We're just downwind from it. And this was down in Mauna Loa Estates, I believe. And just raining Tephra like it was in the park, essentially. Not far from you, Phil, but we have some further down the hill.
Yeah, that's how it was described to me also, right? Like you looked up, it was coming from very high up. Like it wasn't like you could see a cloud and like the cloud, you could see the edge of it. It was just coming from very far up, and it was as far as you could see. You couldn't see the edge of it. You were just in the middle of it, like it was just coming down.
So the Mauna Loa Estates here, you can see that roof. That's a major cleanup there. And a little bit further down, Eden Rock. So still a cleanup, just not as thick, right? And even further down.
That was a dramatic drop off right there, right? Like I remember seeing the USGS line on the map of how quickly it drops off. You can see it right there from those last pictures you just showed.
And it's going to continue like that.
Still lots of stuff. Just
so mountain view. Look at all the pele's here in the mountain view, but it's pretty fine. But this is out in mountain view, this one. And then back in Hawaiian Acres, a lot of pele's hair. A little bit in Eden Rock. Again, pretty fine stuff once we get down here. Further down in Pahoa. So much further down, we're starting to get the really fine stuff. Again, Pahoa. Maku'u, so we're down into HPP, and we can see all that fine material gathered up and didn't really stick that well. It's a dusting that happens. This one's all the way in Kurtistown. Kīlauea down in HPP. And then Hawaiian Beaches got the sprinkles as well. Over at Hawaiian Shores, further down by the coast, it's still getting all the way down there. Even Nanavale gets covered with that dust. There's some in Leilani Estates too. I couldn't see any myself, but there is some. And even Black Sands further down closer to Kalapana. And up north in Hilo, we have some gatherings as well, especially over by Carl Smith and Richardson's. And I just wanted to show over here what it looked like from the other side, right? From ocean view. Let me just rewind that a little bit. Right, it's clear over there, and that's not usually how eruptions go. And I remember thinking that when I was there that day. And then finally from Bob Martin, or that historical little overlook there, that huge bloom. And here I just wanted to, everybody had something to say, but Bobby comes through a lot and says some words of wisdom to us, and this is what he ended up posting. Folks get all excited and want to see the eruptions. Traffic goes crazy. People get crazy. All seem to forget, don't know, or self-centered, clueless that all residents of the volcano area for 10 miles towards Hilo and 25 miles towards Pahala are on catchment. Residents got a deal. with Cinderfall, with Pele's hair, with traffic. I'm sorry, Carrie. So be kind, be attentive. Halemaʻumaʻu is not a Disneyland attraction. It is, however, the current birthplace of our Aina. Land is being born. Be respectful and be aware of the hazards. Pohaha? Pohaha? Tephra in Hawaiian, is that what Bobby has there? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, the Lua'i Pele. Is that what you're reading?
Well, he has down in the almost the last paragraph. Poaha.
Oh,
Tephra.
Pohaha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost his name for Tephra.
It's the best I can read it. Yeah. Bobby is the expert on Hawaiian language terminology for all these phenomena. So,
right. That's what he's calling it. That might be. That's probably what it's called.
That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. And the tiny shards of glass. Don't breathe it. Stay away from it. If you can't visit with proper respect and reverence, perhaps stay home and watch YouTube. I mean, Bobby just, he knows what's happening. And I figured this was as good a place as any to end this little segment on. So yeah, that awesome. Was Hawaii Tracker stuff. We put this all from the Hawaii Tracker group on Facebook. If you're not a part of that, that's where a lot of the action goes down when an episode happens. We have a bunch of really talented photographers, videographers, everybody in between that is out there to document and share their information, so we can end up crowdsourcing things about the extent of fallout relatively quickly, because we get a ton of photos and videos sent to us from around the island whenever something like that happens. So we appreciate everybody that did submit photos. If we used your stuff, I didn't shout you out, we appreciate your contributions. All that stuff is great, and we really appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate our community and all the crowdsourcing of information. It's all great stuff. What they didn't mention is that one of the things that we also do at HBerry is collect that and pass it to civil defense. So we use social media to collect information and then help inform them of what conditions are. That's part one. Them having a plan of what to do and deciding what to do, that's part two. That's a whole other issue that's not us. So I've been hearing a lot of discussion about that part of it as well. This is a very rare event, right? And when you read a paper for how much you prepare for removing Tephra, this amount isn't maybe as worth it to do a whole lot of planning for if it's this rare.
I want to. Yeah, let's compare real quick. I got one last thing let me make sure I got this queued up right. Yeah, so let's compare, what did 2018, that eruption look like? Because we had an event right on top of people, right on top of houses. It wasn't a mile away. It was right there. So let's just take a look at what 2018 Tephra looked like. It's night and day, right? We are talking about Tephra coverage in inches here.
Yeah, that's a roof. That's not the ground.
That's the roof. That's me on a ladder looking at this roof, just being like, oh boy, look at how much it's covered.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to show that real quick for a quick contrast, because it's like, oh man, like the Tephra's bad. Yeah, it's bad, but it can get worse. We have seen what worse looks like.
Right. This is what that hill behind the vents growing on the rim of the crater looks like, right? And if anyone had a house near there, that's what your house would look like then. That's the distance from the fountain to this house in Leilani Estates, more than likely, right? So
yes,
that's why the summit's such a good place for an eruption, because people aren't really living there so much. But she's still shut out and visited many of us here this past weekend.
Yep.
So awesome.
All right.
Thanks for compiling all that, Dane.
Yeah.
Maybe now we'll keep going and try to wrap up our monitoring signals.
Let's do it.
And I'm going to do the earthquakes first. And just to bring us back to where we were last week, we had this information statement last Thursday during our broadcast, where the USGS was just noting the possibilities of what could happen given the increase of earthquakes underneath the summit that had not been seen before. Eruption continues, which is what ended up happening this time, but this caveat now applies for every single episode moving forward. New vents can form in a summit upper southwest rift, or very last east rift zone intrusion or eruption, with this being the least likely scenario, right? Where we would expect increased rates of earthquakes migrating from the summit towards the rift zone first. We haven't seen any of that, but it is on the menu eventually there, right? So that was the context of the day before, 2 days before that episode began. So let's see here. Let's run. So since then, the earthquakes have died down quite a bit. So here is Kīlauea. These are colored by depth. So red is shallower. So only a few under Kīlauea summit. South flank events continue, and you see a lot of these blue vents for the deep Pahala zone ongoing there too. Mauna Loa still has a few events, but they're sparser than they've been in the last few weeks, with the biggest event being this 3.3 that occurred earlier today on that southwest flank there. So that's the layout of earthquakes today. It's really gone down from last week, and not a whole lot of noteworthy events. We see a lot of deep background events from the settling around the island, but nothing really worth highlighting today for us. Looking at the list of all earthquakes plotted by time now, the most recent ones in red, you can see there are recent events here in Pahala, 182018, all through there, all deep down in that deep population. But the largest one we've had was actually a 4.2 that occurred deep in Pahala 3 days ago. So that was 20 miles down. It was widely felt, in fact, and that's actually what this other alert that I pulled up prematurely was right here. Tuesday, January 27th, there was a 4.2 earthquake northwest of Pahala, down 21 miles deep, with no impact on the eruption or elsewhere on the volcanoes. So the alert was put out, nothing really following from it, and no real consequence that we can identify apart from being part of a larger population of earthquakes in Pahala that have been ongoing for how long now? 5 years? Something like that. So, okay, those are our earthquakes. And we'll move on to our monitoring signals now to wrap us up. And we'll start off by going through some of the text updates here. And just to recap, that same information statements where we started last week. Friday morning, they note that there have been the first overflows from the north vent on the evening of the 22nd, with many other overflows continuing, earthquakes still happening, summit tilt deflating, along with a small earthquakes from the summit. This is last week, Thursday to Friday, right? So earthquakes were still occurring at that point in time. Let's move forward to Saturday. Saturday morning, 7:35, they note precursory overflows began at 3:52 a.m. from the north vent and have been continuing still. At that point in time, they were documenting all the overflows, all the spattering, flames at the vents, fountain size, overflows, overflow lengths and durations, while at the same time, the seismicity seemed to be dying down. The next update after 7:35 comes at 11:11 with the USGS announcing episode 41 beginning at 11:10 a.m. right there. That's really all you get right there. There also was a notice for aviation issued at the same time, as is the custom, color code orange, right? And given what we now know about how much Tephra was in the air and how high it was blowing, we can see good reason why the USGS is putting out these VONAs, aviation notices, every time as well. So that was our onset. We have several status updates throughout the day. The first at 12:18 p.m. Well, this is really the third update of the day, right? We had the 7:30, we had an 11:11. Here's our 12:18. And what they note in this update is an estimate, initial estimates of the fountains being over 500 meters or 1,640 feet tall. This later gets corrected back downwards to 1575 and 450. So yeah, everything else, I'll just note there, we'll cover elsewhere. The USGS is also issuing messages on this message page besides those updates. So there's lots of things in here to note, but I wanted to highlight just this one in particular, where they're noting that the tephra is falling all around, but here is the actually note. Tephra around 1 foot in diameter is falling on Highway 11 between a park entrance and Volcano Village and is shattering on impact. All right, so this is the maximum reported size that I've seen anywhere reported of these reticulite sizes. Noted while still in midair, being about 1 foot in diameter and then landing and pulverizing. So there is that. We'll keep it moving to a 2:22 p.m. status report. And of all this, the fountains were coming back down a little bit at that point in time. Small to large clasts, some up to grapefruit size at many public viewing areas, including Uekahuna, Kumamahuakea, steam vents, Volcano House, and Kaanakakoi. And what I note is important here, some tephra at Kaanakakoi was reported to still be hot as it fell. It's the only place I've seen this reported. Yeah, so close enough there, and yeah, imagine that tephra is still hot as it's falling there. Otherwise, tephra is accumulating all over the place. We'll come to that here as well. Another status update at 4:40 p.m. You can see they're very concerned about the impact in the community. As I said, the biggest impact of any eruption in our community since 2018, really, right? And so they're putting lots of updates. In this one, I note slippery conditions reported in subdivisions where rain is falling on crushed tephra coating some of the roads. So you see multiple kind of hazards there. They're reporting all kinds of other similar stuff as before. I'll keep scrolling here. Is this where I want to be? 4 p.m. Yep, and then 7:32 p.m. we have the announcement of the end of the episode. Right, the activity notice itself. Additional details in the next report. We have the aviation notice that comes with it as well. Here, let me just check. We have this 440 aviation notice, alert activity notice, and then we have one final status update at 8:11 p.m. on Saturday as well. And this one is what gives us most of our statistics. They note the full length of 8 hours, 18 minutes with all the actual times. North vent stopping just before the south vent. The highest peak of lava effusion, 800 cubic meters or 1,050 cubic yards per second, just after 12:30 p.m. And an average 360 cubic meters per second or 470 cubic yards per second over the full 8 hours and 18 minutes. That adds up to a full 11 million cubic meters of lava. Now, episode 40 was 5.5, so it was literally twice the amount of lava in less time than the other one had, because the other one was just under 10 hours, and covering much more of the crater floor as well. So those are the important things to note there, and I'll keep us moving forward. Just all the way to today's update, where today you can see the current forecast is between February 9th and 20th, based on the current rates of summit inflation. And that's really all I want to read to you guys here. There's lots more information all through here. Our final stats are 480 meters, 1575 feet, as maximum fountain heights. So yeah, Tephra was reporting communities including Volcano Village, Mauna Loa Estates, Ohia Estates, Mountain View, Fern Acres, Curtistown, Ainaloa Estates, Hilo, Hawaiian Paradise Parks, Hawaiian Beaches, and Pahoa, all across all of Puna there. The more distant communities, the ones listed here, fine-grained ash and Pele's hair. Right. So that's our recap of our episode and our current prognosis for what comes forward. As we noted, it's all contained within the national park. This is the most recent map with data we actually have, but given these volumes and what was just reported, we can show you guys some other summaries as well, including maximum fountain height. There it is. You can see it's our record of our eruption thus far. And overall, you can see the fountain heights have been not linearly, but not in a straight line, but they have been reaching higher and higher peaks over time, right? With resets in between there, right? So that's really interesting to note. Our duration at 8 hours is just about average right there, right? It's pretty average for what we've seen. We've seen longer ones at 40, we've seen shorter ones at 39, so kind of in between there. Our pause length, pretty average as well if you look at the whole eruption. But if you look at this more recent set of them, we're actually at the low end, a fairly short pause, right? Because we had a fairly small volume erupted in the last episode. So short pause to follow and a bigger outburst that we just saw. And as a result, the episode volume here being quite high at 11 right there, right? So I think I read in some news report that Dr. Ken Han, scientist in charge of USGS, said this might have been tied for the second. So if so, maybe there is some data movement or some error bars or something in here that make this tied for second, but otherwise I see it as maybe the third highest output of volume that we've seen thus far. And that means that the discharge rates here are not the highest we've seen, but in this group of the highest ones that we've seen here. It's in the top 5. Whereas episode 40, the last one we had, was abnormally low in comparison, right? So remember episode 40, we had only north vent erupt, no south vent action. In 41, we had both. Maybe that's all it takes for having twice the output in the same amount of time. So those are our graphs. Let's come to the USGS graphs to just note their data before we wrap it up here. It looks like the laser rangefinder measuring elevation is not pointing at a place that lava covered again. So it's showing not much change there, really, right? Or maybe there is a little change, but we can't see because the scale is blown out from the noise in the graph here, one way or the other. Here's our ground tilt. The summit's showing a different pattern than the rift zone, which is green here, which is just showing flat or slightly down. Whereas at the summit, we're seeing the gradual buildup ahead of episode 41, the deflation for 41, and then the recovery that's happened ever since. Earthquake counts are pretty steady this past week, really. You have to ignore these shoulder values because they're only measuring parts of half a day each, right? So they're not going to have the same total. But these middle 6 here, you can compare. There's pretty normal in there. And you can see nothing really stands out in the depth versus time plot of our earthquakes here. It's just kind of steadily going at the same depth for a while with nothing really noteworthy to show here. This is how they plot for the last week. Over the last week, we had a little bit of a couple of days before the episode and the days since. So you have a few earthquakes preceding 41, but then not a whole lot since, added to all the South Flank events and Deep Hala events that we're used to seeing by now. Okay, for the last month of time, our laser rangefinder still has the same issue here. Our rift zone tilt shows a little bit more complexity. Remember, we have had a lot of weather come through, which this might be some of those weather signals coming through. in the green, but nothing of a scale. And since then, it's been pretty flat. Nothing of a scale we see at the summit, and nothing corresponding to the patterns at the summit. So there we see the recovery, and these little dips we mentioned in last week's update being the little earthquake swarms causing extra deflation and prolonged buildup to 41 that we saw in the days ahead. The Sand Hill Station, similar pattern, but slightly varying there. And here's our earthquake counts for the month, which is really our most useful graph. Earthquakes per day. Here is the earthquakes ahead of the 24th, right? It really was the 22nd when the first overflows began. Really from then, the earthquake levels were down quite a bit. And depth versus time, you can see that that block up there corresponds to this heavier plot of circles right through here. And earthquakes are still ongoing, but they have reduced in their rate. There. So there's 3 months of summit tilt, similar patterns. There's 13 months of summit tilt and similar patterns as well. Yeah, and one thing you might note is twice as far of a drop in tilt, right? Maybe because we put out twice as much lava. And so this one, short drop, short recovery, long drop. Right, we've seen this before, short drop, short recovery, long drop, long recovery. It's a little bit further out for the next episode as well. Okay, so here's earthquakes per week. So this shows the last couple of weeks of extra earthquakes, but we're back to our normal here. Our GPS is still accordioning, like stretching out before a pulse of episodic lava effusion, and then jumping down instantaneously during the episode, and then it'll come back up again and keep doing that as well. And you can see this stretching further and further apart every time. So it's kind of like wiggling a tooth or something. We're moving the volcano and making more space. And maybe that's part of how the magma can find new areas and cause earthquakes and try to build pressure and extra room underground there. Puʻuʻōʻō, we know is GPS is out, but the tilt is reassuringly flat for us here. So those are our signals for from USGS, and a couple final things are from the Mountains Project satellite data here. One being this INSAR image showing deflation across the episode. This is taken between the 23rd and 29th, so it catches our main deflation pulse. And what this tells us is the center of magma storage is still right over here. Right there, everything is centered right there. Very similarly, nothing changed since the earthquake swarm. That's what this is telling us. Also, it's showing areas of fallout of Tephra, which in this case are actually fairly contained near the crater wall because we know a lot of it went off in that direction there. Last image here from the satellite, they caught a infrared. This seems to be after the fountains had shut off. We see the cloud is actually up and to the southwest here, but you actually can see a little bit of that lava flow that wrapped around the crater there at the very end of the eruption here. So those are all the monitoring signals to catch up on, and that brings us to the end of the update today, unless you want to add something, Dane, here.
I don't think so. We're coming up on 2 hours at this point. We think we got through basically everything.
Yep, and yeah.
Thank you, Kerry and Dano, for sticking with us.
Are there any questions to mention? Or
there's one from a while ago. Is there an approximate degree of slope from the vents down to the crater floor?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know what the slope would be. We do have some elevation points, so we maybe could calculate it, but I can't do that instantly on air for you guys.
No.
Maybe next week.
Yep. Than that, we'll be back 5 p.m. Thursday, Hawaii Standard Time next week, and maybe have a little special with Caroline from USGS, huh?
With Dr. Liz Gallant from UH.
Oh, it's Liz Gallant. Okay.
I believe, yeah. Intro to Volcanology is where Lou is recording tonight, so that we could all enjoy that next week. and still have a chance to talk about what's on everyone's mind this week, which was all this stuff falling from the sky and all the biggest impact we've had since 2018 on our communities on island. So thank you guys for sticking with us this entire time. We wanted to go a little longer to include all this information in one of our most relevant times, right? Because we are a nonprofit here to improve our preparedness and response and resilience of our communities to volcanic eruptions. We've been talking about how the lava is stuck in a crater, and this is great. We can all go and see it, but also mentioning how the Tephra and gas can impact us outside of that. And that's the main thing we've seen here this week. What's that, Dane?
We did have one question from Raven, who donated. It asked, does the building of the vents and the caldera floor have anything to do with varying tilt heights and the deflation drops?
The building, yes. I mean, yeah. Yes, in ways that are complicated and we can't really exactly nail down, but so here in this plot since the beginning of the eruption, we can note that the tilt actually in the first phase drops quickly, then it seems to slowly drop, then it flattens, and then it drops again. So maybe that pattern might have more to do with a long-term buildup of vents, right? Because maybe we were able to build up to a higher pressure because we're containing things above, something like that. So I think more so on the long-term pattern rather than an episode to episode. But that's the best I can offer right there, right? We've discussed how the episodes, we think that there's really this foam layer that's frothing up, and it's the ratio of the foam and the gas content to the amount of degas lava that's a plug on top of it and how quickly it can push it out. And I feel like it's got more to do with that, right? Each episode, which is related to how much did it put out the last time and how much drained back in and all kinds of other things that are messy as well. But it's a great question. Great question.
All right.
Just hard to answer.
I think that does it this week then on that front.
All right. So mahalo to our ASL interpreters, Carrie and Dano, for Lou Otori and Dane DuPont, and our nonprofit HVERI. I'm geologist Philip Ong. Until next week, everyone. Aloha.